Our essential question in this video is, how can I use what I have learned about circles actually to solve word problems? How can I use what I've learned to solve word problems? Let's take a look at a number of different types of word problems and apply some of the things that we have learned. So let's take a look at this question. If segment GR is 3 feet, what is the length of arc GF? What is the length of arc GF? Well, GR is 3 feet. Class, that's a radius. That's from the center of the circle to a point on the circle. So that means we know that the radius is equal to 3 feet. Well, they want to know what the length of arc GF is, and before we can find the length of arc GF, we have to know what the measure of arc GF is. That tells us how much of the circumference, or what ratio, or what fraction of the circumference that we want. So let's find this. So to find this, we just use the property we know about circles. Circles add up to 360 degrees. When you go all the way around the circle, you go 360 degrees. That means we can find the measure of arc GF. Remember, measure of an arc is in degrees, and that's equal to 360 minus 40 minus 80 minus 110. That gets rid of all these degrees, and what we're going to find is the leftover, which happens to be 130 degrees. So we know that the measure of arc GF is 130 degrees. And if the measure of arc GF is 130 degrees, then we know the measure of the central angle is also 130 degrees. We also know, we can say, so the measure of angle GRF is also equal to 130 degrees, because we know the properties of central angles tell us that. Okay, well, we're going to find the length of arc GF. Remember, our process is the first thing we do is find the whole circumference of this circle. So let's do that. The circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Oops, I almost wrote that wrong. 2 pi r. We know the radius of this circle is 3 feet, so 2 pi 3. We can multiply the 2 times the 3. That's 6 pi. And we know our unit of measure is feet. Since circumference is just the distance around the circle, we don't square the unit of measure. That would be if we were doing area. And we learn that, hey, now we got to do is figure out how much of the arc, or the circumference, is represented by arc GF. What's the distance from G to F? And we can use a fraction or a ratio to figure that out. We're going to find that arc GF, the length of arc GF, is equal to the whole circumference times the part of the circumference we want. Well, think about this. We just want 130 degrees out of 360. 130 out of 360. And that'll give us this piece, just this piece. I'll highlight this so you see this. I just want to know how far is it from G to F. Alright, let's plug that in the numbers we know. So the length of arc GF is equal to the circumference, which is 6 pi, times the portion of the circumference we want, which is 130 degrees out of 360. Let's put that in our calculator, and let's let it do the work for us. Oops, I kind of made this too small. Let me make this back the right size again if I can. Alright, we've got 6 pi times 130 divided by 360. There's the ratio, or the fraction that we want, of the total circumference. We've got 6.80, so we can go ahead and just round that to 6.8. So approximately 6.8 feet. And that's all there is to it. Let's take a look at the next question. Answer the following circle questions. Leave your answers in terms of pi. So we're not going to put these in our calculator. We're going to leave them with pi. Okay, question letter A. Radius is 5 inches. What's the area? Well, we just got to use the area formula. The area of a circle is pi r squared. If our radius is 5, that's pi times 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. So our area is 25 pi inches. And remember, area is in square units because it is two-dimensional. It has a height and a width. So it's 25 pi inches squared. Let's do the next one. What if the diameter is 12 centimeters and what's the circumference? Okay, remember with circumference, we're going to want to know what the radius is. So the radius is equal to diameter divided by 2, which is 12 divided by 2, which is 6. That means the radius is 6 centimeters. And we know that circumference is equal to 2 pi r, which is 2 times pi times 6, which is our radius. 2 times 6 is 12. And we put the pi in the end. This is 12 pi centimeters. Remember, circumference is in just units, not units squared, because it is only one-dimensional. It's just distance. There's the next one. Letter C is the more complicated one, but it's not that big of a problem. It just requires Algebra 1 skills. What if they tell you the area and ask you to find the radius? Not a problem at all. The formula for area is pi r squared, and instead of giving you the radius, they give you the area. So we can go ahead and write 34 equals pi r squared. Now class, all we got to do is get r by itself. We got r by itself and we've got radius. We're going to have to get rid of pi and move it to the other side. We got to get rid of pi so we can start getting r by itself. You divide both sides by pi. The pi over pi here cancels. And I'm going to rewrite this equation. Let's put it over here so we see it. Let's rewrite it and let's put our radius on the left side. So r squared is now equal to 34 divided by pi. Okay, looks kind of messy, but no big deal. Remember, we've learned something. Square root cancels or reverses a square. So if we want to get r by itself, we're going to square root the left side. When we do that, we have to square root the right side. So now the square root cancels the square, and we're going to end up with r is equal to the square root of 34 divided by pi. And remember, radius is just distance, so it's going to be square root of 34 pi centimeters. And if you want to go ahead and convert that to a decimal just to see what it's like, it's not a problem. The question asks us to leave everything in terms of pi, so that's a totally acceptable answer. But just for fun, let's see what that ends up being if we go ahead and measure that, the length of that. So we're going to go ahead and do square root of, and then in parentheses, we're going to do 34 divided by pi, close parentheses. And you can see that's about 3.3. And because our unit of measure is meters, it's going to be approximately 3.3 meters. But remember, our answer was supposed to be in terms of pi. Okay, so there are those questions. All right, so you can solve any radius, any area, any circumference. If you can figure out what the radius is, or if you know the area or the circumference, you can find any missing part of the circumference formula or the area formula.